She yelled, "I don't need your permission for anything." When I asked her not to go on a trip with her ex, I said, "Good, because you don't have it anymore," and moved out while she was gone. She came home to empty closets and a note. I, 32M, never thought I'd be the guy writing one of these posts, but here I am at 2 a.m. in my new apartment, still processing what happened 3 weeks ago. My girlfriend and I had been together for 4 years. We lived together for the past 2, splitting everything down the middle like a proper modern couple. I thought we were building something real, something permanent. Turns out I was the only one thinking that way. The whole thing started when she mentioned this camping trip. She was scrolling through her phone on the couch, feet tucked under her, when she casually dropped that her ex was organizing a weekend getaway to some national park. A group thing, she said. Old college friends. Harmless fun. I felt my stomach tighten immediately. This wasn't just any ex. This was the guy she'd dated for 3 years before me. The one whose photos she'd finally removed from Instagram about 6 months into our relationship. The one who still texted her happy birthday every year and somehow always managed to like her posts within minutes of her posting them. When I asked her if she really thought it was a good idea, she barely looked up from her phone. She told me I was being paranoid and possessive, that it was just friends hanging out, that she wasn't going to let me control who she spent time with. I tried to explain that it wasn't about control. It was about boundaries and respect, about how I'd feel uncomfortable with her spending a weekend in the woods with someone she used to sleep with. I asked if she'd be okay with me doing the same thing with my ex. That's when she got defensive, really defensive. She stood up, phone still in hand, and started pacing around our living room. She said I was being insecure and that she'd never given me a reason not to trust her, that this was exactly the kind of behavior that ruined relationships. I stayed calm. I told her I did trust her, but that trust didn't mean I had to be comfortable with every situation. That maybe we could find a compromise. Maybe I could come along, or maybe she could suggest a different weekend when the ex wasn't involved. She laughed. Not a happy laugh. One of those bitter, incredulous laughs that cuts right through you. She said I was being ridiculous and that she was going whether I liked it or not. That she didn't need my permission for anything. The way she said it, so dismissive, so final, something inside me just snapped. Not in an angry way, but in a clarity way, like suddenly understanding a puzzle you'd been staring at for hours. I looked at her standing there, arms crossed, jaw set in that stubborn way I used to find cute. And I realized this wasn't really about the camping trip. This was about respect, about partnership, about whether we were actually building something together or just two people who happened to share a lease. I told her she was absolutely right. She didn't need my permission. And then I said the words that would change everything. Good, because you don't have it anymore. She stared at me for a long moment, probably expecting me to backtrack or apologize. When I didn't, she asked what I meant by that. I told her exactly what I meant. That if she wanted to make unilateral decisions about our relationship, she could make them as a single person. She called me dramatic. Said I was throwing a tantrum because I wasn't getting my way. That I'd calm down and see reason by morning. But I was already seeing reason. Crystal clear reason. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while she slept beside me. Or pretended to sleep. I could tell by her breathing that she was awake too. I thought about all the little things I'd been ignoring. The way she'd started working late more often. The way she'd become protective of her phone. The way she'd stopped talking about our future together. The camping trip wasn't the problem. It was just the symptom. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. Made coffee, chatted about her day, kissed me goodbye before work. Like our entire relationship hadn't shifted off its axis the night before. I called in sick. Spent the day researching apartments, calculating finances, figuring out logistics. By the time she came home, I'd already put a deposit down on a place across town. 1 bedroom, nothing fancy, but it was mine. I didn't tell her. Not yet. The week leading up to her trip was surreal. She was excited, making lists, buying new hiking gear. She'd show me things on her phone, photos of the campsite, the route they were taking. Like she was trying to prove how innocent it all was. I played along. Helped her find her sleeping bag in the closet. Asked about the weather forecast. All while quietly transferring my portion of our joint savings to a new account. The night before she left, we had dinner together. Takeout Thai food on the couch, watching some Netflix show neither of us was really following. She seemed nervous, kept glancing at me like she was waiting for me to bring up the trip again. I didn't. Instead, I asked her if she was happy. really happy. With us, with our life, with where we were headed. She got that look again, defensive, guarded. She said of course she was happy. Why would I even ask that? I told her I was just checking, that I wanted to make sure we were on the same page about things. She kissed me then, soft and sweet, and said she loved me. That this trip didn't change anything between us. That she'd be back Sunday night, and we could talk about whatever was bothering me. I kissed her back and said okay. Friday morning, she loaded her car with gear and gave me another kiss goodbye. Told me not to burn the house down while she was gone. I watched from the window as she drove away, her car disappearing around the corner. Then I got to work. I'd already arranged for the movers. They arrived an hour after she left. 3 guys with a truck who had everything packed and gone by noon. My clothes, my books, my furniture, my electronics. Everything that was mine, which turned out to be about half of everything we owned. The hardest part was the photos. For years of pictures together on trips, at parties, just random moments around the house. I left those behind. Let her decide what to do with them. I cleaned as I went. Vacuumed where my dresser had been. Scrubbed the bathroom after removing my toiletries. I wanted to leave the place exactly as clean as I'd found it. The last thing I did was write the note. I sat at the kitchen counter, our kitchen counter, which would just be her kitchen counter in a few hours, and tried to figure out what to say. How do you summarize 4 years and explain a decision like this in a few paragraphs? I kept it simple. Told her I'd thought a lot about what she'd said about not needing my permission. That she was right. She was a grown woman who could make her own choices. But that I was also a grown man who could make his own choices about what kind of relationship I wanted to be in. I explained that I wanted a partnership where major decisions were discussed and mutual respect mattered. Where we considered each other's feelings even when we didn't have to. Where us mattered more than me. I told her I hoped she had a great time on her trip. That I hoped she found what she was looking for, whatever that was. That I wasn't angry, just disappointed that we wanted different things. I left my key next to the note and walked out of our apartment for the last time. Update 1. She called me Sunday night. 23 missed calls between 7 p.m. and midnight. I finally answered on the 24th. She was crying. Ugly crying. The kind where you can barely understand what someone's saying through the sobs. She asked where I was, where my stuff was, what the hell I thought I was doing. I told her I was at my new apartment. That I'd meant what I said about not needing permission anymore. That I'd made my choice the same way she'd made hers. She said I was insane. That I'd completely overreacted to a simple camping trip. That she couldn't believe I'd moved out over something so stupid. I asked her how the trip was. If she'd had fun. The silence stretched long enough that I almost thought the call had dropped. Finally, she said it was fine. Just friends hanging out. Nothing happened. I believed her. Strangely enough, I actually did believe her. But that wasn't the point anymore. I told her that this wasn't really about the camping trip. That it was about respect and communication and partnership. That when I'd asked her not to go, I wasn't trying to control her. I was trying to share how I felt and see if we could work through it together. She said she understood that now. That she'd been thinking about it all weekend. That she wanted to fix things. I asked her what she thought needed fixing. Another long pause. She said maybe she could have handled it better. Been more understanding of my feelings. But that I'd handled it worse by just disappearing instead of talking to her. I reminded her that I had tried to talk. That she'd shut down the conversation by declaring she didn't need my permission. She got quiet again. Then asked if I was really done. Just like that. For years down the drain over one argument. I told her it wasn't one argument. It was a pattern I'd been ignoring. A fundamental difference in how we viewed our relationship. That she saw it as 2 independent people who happened to live together, while I saw it as a team making decisions together. She asked if we could meet for coffee. Talk things through properly. I said maybe in a few weeks, when we'd both had time to process. That I needed space to figure out what I really wanted. She hung up crying. Update 2. 3 weeks later, she texted asking if I was ready for that coffee. I said yes. We met at the Starbucks near our old apartment. She looked tired, like she hadn't been sleeping well. She'd cut her hair shorter, which she always did when she was stressed. She apologized. Really apologized, not the half-hearted kind where someone's just trying to end an argument. She said she'd been selfish and dismissive. That she'd taken me for granted and hadn't realized how much her attitude had been hurting our relationship. I thanked her for saying that. Told her I appreciated the apology. She asked if that meant I'd consider moving back. Trying again. I'd been dreading this question because I'd already figured out the answer, and I knew she wouldn't like it. I told her that the apology meant a lot, but that these 3 weeks apart had shown me something important. That I'd been happier living alone than I'd been in months. That I'd realized somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being myself and started being whoever she needed me to be to avoid conflict. She started crying again, asked if there was anything she could do, any way to fix what she'd broken. I reached across the table and took her hand, told her she hadn't broken anything. We'd just grown in different directions. That we wanted different things from a relationship, and that was okay. That it didn't make either of us bad people. She asked about the camping trip. If this would have happened anyway. I thought about it for a minute. Told her honestly that yes, probably. That the trip had just been the catalyst for a conversation we should have had months ago. She wanted to know what happened on the trip. If her ex had tried anything. If that's why she'd been thinking about our relationship all weekend. She looked down at her coffee cup, stirring it even though she hadn't added anything to it. She said no, nothing had happened. But that being there, seeing how he treated his new girlfriend, how considerate he was, how he actually listened when she talked, had made her realize what she'd been doing to us. That hurt more than I expected it to. Not jealousy, exactly, but a kind of sad irony. That it took seeing someone else treat their partner well for her to understand what partnership was supposed to look like. I told her I was glad she'd figured it out. That it would help her in whatever relationship came next. She asked if I thought we could ever be friends. I said maybe someday, but not now. That we both needed to move forward completely before we could look back without pain. We hugged in the parking lot. A real hug, not the awkward kind you give someone you're pretending to be okay with. She whispered that she was sorry for wasting 4 years of my life. I told her she hadn't wasted anything. That I'd learned a lot about what I wanted and needed from a partner. That I was grateful for that, even if it hadn't worked out. I watched her drive away, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I felt completely at peace with my decision. Final update. It's been 6 months now. I'm still in the same apartment, but I've made it home. Got some plants, hung up pictures, bought furniture that's actually comfortable instead of just practical. I heard through mutual friends that she's dating someone new. Someone from work. They seem happy, and I genuinely hope they are. I hope she's learned to be a better partner. I hope she's found someone who brings out the best in her instead of someone she feels the need to fight for independence from. As for me, I'm not dating yet. I'm focusing on figuring out who I am when I'm not constantly managing someone else's emotions or walking on eggshells to avoid conflict. Turns out I'm actually pretty funny when I'm not worried about saying the wrong thing. I'm more social than I thought, more confident, more willing to take risks. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, and I've realized that the camping trip really was never about the camping trip. It was about respect, communication, and whether two people can build something together or if they're just two individuals sharing space. She was right about one thing. She didn't need my permission. But I didn't need to accept being in a relationship where my feelings didn't matter, where asking for consideration was seen as controlling, where compromise meant I gave up what I needed so she could do whatever she wanted. Some people reading this might think I overreacted, that I threw away 4 years over one weekend. But those people have never been in a relationship where they slowly disappeared, piece by piece, until they weren't sure who they were anymore. Moving out while she was gone might seem dramatic, but it was the clearest way to communicate something she hadn't been hearing. That actions have consequences. That relationships are built on mutual respect, not just shared rent and Netflix passwords. I don't regret it. Not the relationship, not the breakup, not the way I handled it. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is show them that their behavior has real consequences. Sometimes the only way to save yourself is to stop trying to save someone else. I'm learning to trust my instincts again, to speak up when something bothers me instead of talking myself out of my own feelings, to recognize the difference between compromise and capitulation. And honestly, I'm excited about what comes next, about meeting someone who sees partnership the same way I do. Someone who wants to build something together instead of just existing in parallel. Someone who understands that love isn't about not needing each other. It's about choosing each other every day, even when you don't have to. Especially when you don't have to. The note I left that day was right. I hope she found what she was looking for. And I hope I'm getting closer to finding it too. But I know for sure now that what I'm looking for isn't someone who doesn't need my permission for anything. It's someone who cares enough about us to ask for my input, even when they don't need to. Someone who chooses us every time.